What's up, everybody? Welcome to MixLife. We are on episode 38. Glad to have you guys here. And we're just coming along smoothly. We got a lot of shows under our belt now. We started back in February, I think. So glad to have you guys here. I am joined by the illustrious and known across city and state for his crimes and consequences. Concrete River.
I think what you're going for is notorious at that point.
I was trying to go like Barnum and Bailey level.
I think out of everybody involved with e-juice makers, I probably belong in the sideshow the most, so I'm not even going to argue with the Barnum and Bailey thing.
Yeah, you'd definitely be the guy in the strange sideshow barking. Bearded lady, this way.
Yeah, I could totally do a bearded lady thing. I just have to let the bottom of this grow in a little bit. I can rock a loose floral dress pretty well.
That's perfect.
Hey, so what you been working on, man?
I have. We finished our Christmas line, and those launched on Thursday for chefs. And I did a one called White Christmas, which is I never made the Liquid Barn white chocolate peppermint, but I kind of I thought well, if I built it from scratch without that ingredient, what would it be like? So I kind of built a chemist version of that profile. So it's a white chocolate candy cane profile for England, because they don't even have all the Liquid Barn things like that. So they've never even seen that profile. So that was what White Christmas is. And but I did it without the Liquid Barn white chocolate peppermint. So I like to do that. I did that with like eggnog. The eggnog custard I released there too has no eggnog flavor in it. So that too is like built from scratch. And so that's another one. And then I did they have this one, you've tried it, I bet, is the Devon cream. You tried that? Okay,
yeah,
so I
took good stuff.
So I took the Devon cream and built it out as like a thick pudding, and then strengthened it up with the butterscotch and like caramel notes. So just making it even more body to it and more depth to each of the notes that are in it. And so those are my three. And then Chris did a rum cake with I think caramel rum. I think that's what that one is. And then he did something called Bootleggers RY4, which is a bourbon tobacco RY4. So really, it's fun to do the seasonal lines because you get to think like, if I was celebrating Christmas in England, what flavors would I be interested in? And then two is you kind of get to experiment with what flavors do you think will be more popular there than here. So you kind of have a good feel for America and vape shop flavors here, but then it's like playing a different version of the same video game almost. Same thing when we did the Canadian liquids. We took time to research kind of what people liked in Canada and then built profiles. And those are selling really good. Those are like half sold out already. And every release we're getting more quantity. They're making more quantity to start with. So we're still selling good. So that's good. That's probably our most successful area where we sell fast. So thank you to the chefs in England for that one. And it's fun too. It's nice to have like a Christmas set. And it's our second year in a row too. So that's always good. Like that's the point of failure would be like if you don't get invited back to the party. So like a year later to be invited back to the same party, that's a good success.
Yeah, you must be doing something right there. I'm still a little bit disappointed that y'all haven't tackled a fruitcake yet, because I think fruitcake vapes are going to be next level for the next holiday season.
Says King Fruitcake over there.
Yeah, just fruitcake everywhere, man.
You made the quintessential fruitcake. If you guys are looking for a fruitcake, Concrete just released one on
As
all the flavors.
as far as I know, it's the only available fruitcake. I didn't see any other fruitcakes, but I haven't combed the depths of ELR, so somebody probably made one in 2014 that people will like more. Um, But yeah, it turns out if I was trying to use tobacco as a spice, and kind of play around with that in like a bakery form, like make a tobacco spice cookie, and I ended up adding so many fruits to kind of modify the tobacco and knock the edges off.
Damn
And
it! I
like,
made a fruitcake.
yeah, too much TPA marshmallow. And so I sent it out to Mixers Club, and Dave gets a hold of it. And of course, Dave's first like actual response as well, I don't like this because it's a fruitcake, but it's really accurate to a fruitcake. And I was just like sold at that point. It's like, I could have a middling tobacco spice cookie recipe, or I could have the fruitcake recipe. So
Right.
I just called it a fruitcake and went with it.
No, Lonesome Road. So Southern Smoke is like the #1 selling flavor. That one and Mango Tango. I get it twisted up. Those are best sellers. Like hundreds of bottles a month are selling of those. So you're going to be happy with Southern Smoke. Let it steep. Some people think you don't have to steep a one shot, but it's just flavoring. So you definitely want to steep based on if you were to mix it that day. So 2 to 3 days is good for most fruits. If it has cream or tobacco, go plus a week. If it's a cheesecake or chocolate, 3 weeks. That's what I suggest generally. So Southern Smoke, you're good after like a week. Same with the Bootleggers RY4. That's going to be good at about a week. And then just the longer you go, the better. The Devon Pudding one comes out in a couple days because they had to special order some ingredients. So that's the other cool thing about chefs is when we started, we had to work with kind of what they have. And now, like, we have a little more flexibility where we can add an ingredient and they'll special order it just to make the recipe right. So that's cool. Let's see what else is going on in the mixing world. Let's just do this. We've been trying to talk about Liquid Barn, Concrete River stuff for a while, so I'll let him get going on some of that.
So if you're following along with I just want to say best YouTube channel in the world, my own personal flavor testing channel. You'll know that I've been testing a whole lot of Liquid Barn flavors, and I think I've got like maybe 5 or 6 left to burn through total. But I think I have. It's funny. It's been interesting sort of looking at mixing from the perspective of somebody who will go to Liquid Barn and like buy one of their tastemaker kits and just mix up some juice. And maybe that's the first time that they're mixing some juice. I tend to look at mixing from like the weird hobbyist aspect of it, where I'm at like 0.1% of something for an accent of something. And, I tend to overcomplicate my mixes. And that's great when it goes well, but there's a pretty high failure rate with that kind of mixing. And with this Liquid Barn stuff, I could see how it's sort of more designed to like guide people through actually mixing for the first time, or like novice mixers or people who don't want to put in that level of like nerdy effort to it. And I really respect sort of the presentation and sort of the vibe that they give off with it. The actual flavors are a little interesting. A lot of them have relatively high mixing percentages, which, I'm not necessarily opposed to in like a beginner product. At least that means that if you add an extra 1% or 2% of something, it's not going to completely like kill your mix. So on the bright side, they're easy to work with. On the negative side of that, it does kind of mess with the value proposition a little bit when you're using 10 to 15% of a flavor for, you know, a fairly simple profile. But they have some good stuff. A lot of their more like sort of finished one-shot kind of flavors are pretty good. Their white chocolate peppermint, I was pleasantly surprised with. Their vanilla mint isn't exactly rocket science, but I do have to say I've been digging it enough that like I even mixed up like a 120 of it, and I've been using it instead of just my straight menthol. So I mean that's awesome. I mixed that up at 10%. Their bakeries kind of have a little bit of a lack of texture, which is a bit of a bummer. I'd like to see some harder texture in there. But a lot of the accent flavors in the bakeries are interesting. Baker's Touch is really cool, but I'm kind of over having my bakeries already include cinnamon. So that's kind of a negative for me. I think a lot of their bakeries actually include that cinnamon. Their creams, I haven't really got my head around how to use those yet, outside of their vanilla bean ice cream. They're a lot of them have like a really good slug of acetone or acetylpropanol. So they have like a really, really rich, heavy base to them. But then like the top of the flavor is actually like super thin, like even up where they're suggesting mixing like 6-8%. So they might be more useful for layering. They don't really strike me as like a good all-purpose cream solution. I have no clue what the hell's going on with their tobaccos. I'll just say that right now. I tried their sweet pipe tobacco, which was just sweet. It tasted like Oba Oba, basically. And then the other tobaccos that I tried had a lot of that sort of like somebody overdosed on using Oba Oba as a tobacco additive kind of quality. They're a little bit fluffy. They don't have any sharp edges. And they don't really have a lot of tobacco in them, which is a bummer. Their straight tobacco flavor is really clove heavy, and there's just a little hint of like a nice dark herbal tobacco behind it, but I was really hoping for a whole lot more actual tobacco behind that, because I think I would have really liked that one if they had cranked the tobacco up. But yeah, I think I respect where Liquid Barn's coming from more than I think I'll end up using a lot of the flavors moving forward. But it was really interesting, I guess. It was good looking at things from a different perspective.
What are your like top 3 to 5 must buys if you're a new mixer? What would you say they should buy for like 3 flavors that'll hold them over?
So if you're a new mixer, honestly, their Baker's Touch is pretty good just by itself. If you're into bakeries, I think it's nice and it's complicated. It's kind of like a spicy yellow cake. So I think that's going to tick off a lot of boxes without having to worry about adding anything to it. Their white chocolate peppermint really is good, which is cool, you know. So that's a really solid flavor. I mean, obviously you should buy White Christmas from Chemist at Chef's Flavors, but if you can't get a hold of that, that's White Chocolate Peppermint by Liquid Barn's a pretty good facsimile thereof.
Exactly. Yeah, they're limited edition, so it's kind of like I have Adder Rose still, and like every once in a while I'll make a recipe with it, and it's nice to have a recipe. Like people like to get like, oh, I want this to be my all-day vape, and I want to vape it for the next year, and I want it to be available. But it's also fun to like buy something that you know is limited and scarce, because then it's like a treat almost, you know. This is a treat for England basically. But yeah, once it goes away, it's most likely not going to stick around. Can't sell White Christmas in like June. So,
I mean, you try. And then, I don't know, I throw in Blue Raspberry and their Vanilla Bean Ice Cream. Not so much even for the people just buying their first set of flavors. But their ice cream solid. We've talked about their ice cream quite a bit. Their Blue Raspberry maybe isn't as blue as I would like, whatever that ends up meaning. But it's a really solid candy raspberry flavor with just a little bit of that kind of blue raspberry vibe.
Nice. I made Right now I'm vaping on I wouldn't say it's good. It's okay. It's Capella cake, banana cream with pumpkin bread flavora. So it's kind of, and then pastry zest flavora. So it's kind of like a bready pumpkin, like a pumpkin bread with a hint of banana, like a blend between banana bread and pumpkin bread. But I vaped through the whole thing already in like a few days, so it's not bad.
I've been trying to steel myself. As far as I know, I'm going to be hanging out on Noted tomorrow talking about blue raspberries, and I'm not the biggest blue raspberry guy. So I've been working on some blue raspberry tests, just kind of catching up. I've tested a couple of the flavors. I've been trying to sort of figure out what that defining blue characteristic is, and I'm definitely not going to figure it out, but I've had fun playing with some kind of trashier flavors, which has been nice. An excuse to use a whole lot of sweetener. Right now I'm vaping on a juice that I creatively labeled, oh, you're not going to be able to see it, but it's trash with like 8 A's, and it's just mixing together a bunch of sour raspberry and blue raspberry licorice flavors. It's okay.
I did for my girlfriend, I did a raspberry watermelon gummy bear, and that turned out pretty good. So I'm holding that one because I figure it might be worth $1 million in Canada or something like that if we ever do a hype juice brand.
Well, I figure, I should take the not being super into blue raspberry thing as a learning experience, because I think if I can figure out how to actually replicate a good blue raspberry without, digging into weird off-brand candy flavors, I think there's probably some money in that. I can definitely buy myself all sorts of snow tires with that, but we'll see what happens.
You're going big. You're going for snow tires.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, we had our 3rd snowfall of the year. It's actually been pretty warm here so far, but I just bought the snow tires. I'm currently in the hole, so I need to sell some more stuff to actually get even with my snow tires this year.
All right, so let's see. We got Liquid Barn. Let's see. What's you've been on like every show that exists in the last week.
I've been running my ass off, man. And I've been doing it all on like a step up from dial up. So I have to apologize for everybody for, the 4 pixels on the screen at any given time.
I remember when I tried to do like DIY or die in my room off Wi-Fi, and it was just trash. Like, and then I'd explain to my girlfriend why I'd like killed our internet for 2 weeks to get it updated to like another level. I was like, you don't understand. It was bad. It was like cell phone video chat from like 1996.
Oh yeah, it's bad. Yeah, this is why we need more competition in the ISP space, because this is about as good as I'm getting for the next year and a half. So
yeah, like I'm on CenturyLink. Like I could go higher with the cable, but then I'd have to pay for a different company, and I already have a deal with CenturyLink, so that's how it goes, folks.
Yeah,
what you get.
My fucking upstream is capped at like 900K. Like they don't even measure my upstream in megabits. It's terrible. I have like 15 megabits downstream, but the upstream is apparently the thing that's absolutely killing them.
Yeah, that's what gets you. Let's see. So you got any Christmas things you're working on? Anything holiday besides the fruitcake you're pursuing?
Not really. I am mixing up a couple. I don't know. That's the cool thing about DIY. I just go ahead and keep harping on the smokers I know in my life to switch to vaping, so it gives me easy Christmas gifts. So I don't have to really worry about that. I've been mixing up a lot of 500 milliliter batches for some of my buddies who vape for Christmas.
That's nice. That's a good present.
Especially going through way too much nicotine.
Are they DIYers generally, or are they vape shop guys?
They're vape shop guys, but I've got them kind of weaned over to using a lot of my stuff.
That's good. Let's see what else we got going on. Mixer collection is doing good. The guy that owns that has he got all the vape models involved. So if you go on Instagram and look at the Canada pages, it's all over there, which is something we didn't know anything, like we never done that as DIY. So like it's so crazy to see your bottles like with some vape model chick holding it, or some dude in the woods vaping it, and stuff like that.
With like a TF-V12, you know.
Yeah.
Just all sub-ohm tanks and scantily clad women. You've officially made it.
We're there. We've done it. This is the life goals we dreamed of. It's cool though. It's funny because like we wouldn't have done that. Like no, not even like known where to start with that. So it's funny to see like the brand all over the place, hype style. But you know, it's a fun project. Like it wasn't what that actually came to us. Like we didn't go and pitch the idea for the e-juice line. Like the things I pitch are like, you know, e-cig Express, the Wizard Labs deal. Those are the kind of things we're pitching. Bugging Bull City for like the last of way before recipe packs ever existed. I'd gotten like 4 rejections from them because I would just ping them and be like, hey, you know, you guys should do some one shots. So the recipe packs are, you know, if you look at in the industry, like a year ago, Wayne had the only one shots. You know, there's other brands that are like smaller brands or like niche brands, but like if you're looking at the main vape shop companies or the DIY shops, you know, Wizard Labs had none. e-cig Express had their own, and they had Wayne stuff, but no one else had got in the market. Bull City had nothing. And, you know, now, you know, I wouldn't call one-stop DIY shop stuff one shots specifically either, because they kind of, I mean, you can, but they kind of taste a little better if you add, you know, 1 or 2 ingredients to each one of them. So it's kind of cool that, you know, a year ago, Wayne was the only guy that had any U.S. market at all. And then this year, you know, the whole mix team, you know, except for Apex and Steam Room, because they just weren't around right when we were doing the deal. So the Steam Room's got the mixer collection, but it was really cool to see like the 10 different mixers were able to have one shots. And then, you know, with I don't think Jennifer ever had a one shot. Like she had a vape line a few years back, but you know, in the DIY world, you know, she's got a one shot now, and Emily's got a one shot, and Too Tall got to have one shot. Concrete River, you have a one shot. Like, so some people that I don't think ever had one shots before now have something to, you know, build on in the future, where, you know, down the road that could be a whole line for each one of you guys, or different deals in the future. So that's a big success, I think, when it comes to, you know, the longer term vape market. Because if we assume the industry is going to do a 4x growth in the next 2 to 4 years, I think we're positioned pretty well as at least people to talk to when the mixing's going on.
So Shindo's already mentioned it. Apparently he's coming to Chefs too, so be on the lookout for that. That's going to be entertaining to see what he comes up with.
Nice. That's great. That's good to hear, Shindo. They're awesome. They are the, you know, they really are like the easiest to work with. Not that any of the others are like really difficult, but I mean, those guys are just like a handshake and a check sent, you know, so they're really quality people you can trust. So it's good you got a deal there. See, that's the thing, is it's like as we grow as e-juice makers, you know, potentially down the road, that's going to grow opportunities for a lot of you guys that, you know, maybe you've never seen $1 from mixing. that might be something down the road, because there's going to be explosions in other countries. So yes, America's on pause, but there's going to be South America, Colombia, there's New Zealand. All these countries are going to blow up, and they're going to come looking for quality mixers. And the cool thing about the mixer collection is there's only like one other, like Philip Rock, right? And then there was a line that Enjoy did where Jeremy Dollar and like 3 other mixers were featured, like in the actual flavors had their name on them. But aside from those, and the commercial side, you usually don't see who the mixer is. Either the mixer is the co-packer company they do the formulations, and they'll be like, all right, we can make your flavor and bottle it for you, right? And then other times it's like the owner of the company figuring it out and then putting the order in. But with the mixer collection, it's making the statement that, there's pro mixers out there. There's people that, it's putting value into the brand of being a mixer, where over the last 4 or 5 years, you would sign that away. So you would do for contract mix, you make a recipe, and you sell that recipe for like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, and then you're done. And they go off and make $1 million, and you're like, hey, that was something. It's like working on a song and selling it to like a famous musician, and then they go on and make it a hit. You wouldn't get royalties in the past. So part of that mixer, the value of the mixer collection is it puts the mixer forward in front, so that people are like, hey, Jennifer Jarvis made this flavor, or Chemist made this flavor. And then that builds the brand of the mixer, which down the road is going to open up more opportunities for things like that, where people are like, well, I want to know who made this juice, not just, the transition from hype and, this looks like a pack of Skittles flavor to this is actually like made by a mixer that I enjoy. So it's a transition that I think will keep up down the road.
We have a couple questions from chat. So the first one was from Cincinnati King asking about flavors in the Joytech AIO and mixing for those kind of systems in general, I'm guessing. So he calls out forest fruit and harvest berry as 2 flavors. So beyond that, basically it gives you an excuse to use a bunch of flavors with throat hit too, which is my favorite thing about those little all-in-one systems, especially if you're going to be mixing up like higher nicotine levels. And by all means, if you are going to be mixing in one of those, especially for somebody who's new to vaping, just dump nicotine in there. That's a good application for nicotine salts. Like 18 milligrams works fine in an AIO with salts. I've tried it. 24 is fine in an AIO. And some of my favorite flavors to use in those are kind of harsh flavors, just because you've already got a whole bunch of nicotine salts. You might as well have some fun. So it gives you an excuse to bust out like TPA's Juicy Peach. Is one of my favorites.
Apricot. Flavora apricot. Bring it back, folks.
Oh no, Flavora nectarine.
Mm-hmm.
I like Flavora apricot. The nectarine was a problem. So big bright fruits. You probably want to stay away from strawberries. They don't translate well in those little tiny devices. Really heavy percentages of Flavor West candy flavors work okay. Those things are pretty much built for like heavy menthols too. I've found that if you just mentholate the fuck out of a juice in one of those all-in-ones, that's pretty awesome.
Mango. Mango's the #1 selling jewel pod by like 4 times as much. So if you're looking for a flavor, if they like mango, that's a good bet.
It's going to be a little bit hard to get a really vibrant mango that pops out of one of those systems. That's why I'm kind of interested to see what Juul's doing, because the mangoes for me are maybe even a little bit subtle for that kind of system. So I want to know how the hell they're actually getting a good mango flavor on top of like 50 milligrams of Nick salts at like the 3 watts that those things run at.
Sure.
But Shindo called out pineapple too. Really good excuse to use TPA's pineapple, actually, in those little all-in-one systems. That's an absolute bully, you know. Oh, Shindo says they're using Reka, he thinks. That's interesting. Yeah, but I mean, really just stick to 2-3 flavors, crank up the percentages at least 1.5 to 2 times as high as you think they need to be. And don't be afraid of just dumping Nick salts in there.
Yeah, pineapple with mango. Give it a try. I like Philippine mango mixed with sweet mango Capella. I like Capella's tropicals. That's like my favorite. Like Capella hibiscus, Capella sweet guava you can work with. And then even Flavora tropicals. Like that's Flavora will have some hit or miss flavors in the other, taste profiles. But when it comes to tropicals, they do tropicals really well. And then Capella's like sweet mango. And what else is there? Sweet guava. Is there sweet tangerine or something like that they have too?
Yeah, their sweet tangerine is not my favorite, but a lot of people dig that one. I've seen a lot of recommendations for using that one as a single flavor. I think a lot of people like that.
Yeah, what are you doing for sweetener with the Nick salts? Because Nick salt, I got a batch coming from New Nicotine, and then so do you change your PGVG at all when you mix with Nick salts? And then are you over sweetening or over flavoring to compensate, or do you not have to do that?
So the only application that I actually really like for the Nick salts is the all-in-ones. So I'm usually up higher with the Nick salts, and honestly, I haven't been able to tell much of a difference actually using sweetener except for coil life. So for those, when I'm up at like 18, 24 milligrams, I usually just leave the sweetener out because you don't really need the nuance for it. It's not really going to punch through. And I figure, you might as well go ahead and save those coils. One of my favorite things to carry around all day, it's a e-leaf Aster, I want to say, but it uses the iCare coils. So I absolutely loved my iCare, but the pressure switch on it broke. So I just got one that uses the same coils and actually has a firing button on it. And I think right now in here I have 5% Flavora root beer and 5% Capella root beer. But sweetener doesn't really come through. It's generally just going to kind of gunk up the coils in those little tiny closed systems.
Yeah, Jennifer mentioned it's the sweet lychee was the other one I was thinking of. That's really good. That's like it actually tastes like lychees does, and Flavor Apprentice does not. So if you're trying to make a lychee juice, because I was a big fan of those, it's from Capella, and it works well.
And then earlier on in the chat, we had a question about how to approach juice, like a local shop, about selling like one of your flavors, selling them a recipe. I think you're probably pretty uniquely qualified to talk about that.
Yeah, so well, it depends on where you're at, right? So if you're in the US, you're they're not going to be too open to it. But if let's say you're somewhere else,
I think it's Sub Vapes. I think he's in the UK, if I remember right.
Yeah, he's still got trouble there, but they get away with it with their flavor shot stuff. So the best way to do it's samplers, right? So mix up. That's the way these shops work. Is they don't, because if you think about it from the shop's perspective, they're not in the business of giving you a chance, right? They're not even interested in that. Like, so you have to prove yourself to them. And the best way to do it is just to drop off like a 3 milligram, throw a nice label on it, and drop it off and give it to whoever the influencer is there. And get them talking about it. I mean, that's a lot of what we're doing with the mixer collection is you kind of work your way up the chain at different shops, and you know, you create advocates for what you do. And then when it comes to, you have to look at, you know, is it profitable for you too? Like, it depends on, you know, set your goals reasonable of what you're hoping to get from it. You know, is it better for you to, yeah, okay, so Manchester, you know, I'd go, you know, find somebody who's done it. Gareth has had success kind of creating that. He works with chefs. The Flavor Boss, I think it is, or something like that. But I'd start with chefs. If I was in the UK, I'd start with them because they're dealing with a lot of shops with their pot shots brands and stuff like that. So that would give you the way in the door, is to kind of work with them, and just sort of see, or maybe just ask for advice, because that's what helps the best. Is like, if you don't know a market, the best way to learn is to ask people for advice. Like when we started going into Canada, I hit up like the biggest shop. Like, this guy owns like 20 shops, mega shops, like something that was way out of our range to even play in. But I asked him for advice, and he messaged back. Now, if I would have messaged him like, hey, I want to sell recipes out of your shop type of thing, you're going to hit a stop sign, you know. But people are more willing to give advice, especially if you're saying like, hey, how would you go about getting something in the shop? Or do you have any advice for me for how to do this? And people are a lot more willing to offer advice than give favors, you know. So find out your way to approach that. And, you know, get used to the word no. You know, really successful business people get told no way more than unsuccessful people. And it seems crazy, but it's true. It's like the guy that has success has just gotten used to being told no. Like, I got no from e-cig Express probably 15 times before I got a yes. Wizard Labs, I got no's from. Bull City, I got no's from. So it's, get used to taking no for an no is not a final answer. No just means you need to, you know, you need time and you need to rethink your approach. And then eventually it'll be a yes, or you'll revise, you know, you'll revise your approach. But definitely consider asking for advice from chefs first off, and then from even the guys at Dark Star, and get to know the market of how it works. Because you might walk in there like, hey, I want to sell recipes to you guys for the house juice, and they might not even make the house juice there. They might be buying one shots from chefs and doing like a resale behind the scenes. So it's better to learn how the market works first. Yeah, and then like Jennifer's talking about the TPD, you know, you have the restrictions, but there may be a way in the door somewhere else, you know. But then whenever you do get that opportunity, you know, send them juices. Like, I've sent juices to people that never even responded. Just, you know, but don't tell yourself no. That's always a big one. That's a Steve Jobs thing, which is don't say no for yourself. Let them tell you no. You know, don't assume they're going to say no and then not try to have opportunity. Make them say no to you and then rework. But it's a lot better to know you tried stuff than to not ever do it. Hope that helps.
Yeah, Shinda's talking about having a good portfolio to help. So if you do go in to like pitch them, just make sure that you keep, you know, send them 5 things, send them unreleased stuff, you know. So that way, if they want to do something right off the bat, saying, oh, hey, like, I love that juice, just be ready to have juices that you can actually just give them. Like, get ready for them to actually really dig the samples too, which is huge. You know, you can run into some issues sending people stuff that's already been released.
Yeah. So that's something we adjusted on, because some of the guys would want exclusives. We first started, it was more a matter of like, well, let's put up stuff that we know is good. But then what you run into is you'll be selling a flavor and it's selling great, and then someone will post like the fucking recipe from like a year ago that they screenshotted in the sales promo and stuff like that. Or someone's like, hey, what's a good flavor? Like, oh, this product. And then because you've put out stuff that you already put out, somebody's inadvertently like showing the recipe. The other thing is like, when you release a recipe, that stuff, like, I found my recipe in Pakistan and the guy was selling one shots and then he had the recipe up, and I didn't care that he was like reselling the one shots because he had to buy them, you know, full value to get them there, but they had the recipe up and I was like, damn it. You know, so what I think is the best way to do it is, if you know, develop for DIY and don't short anybody. Like, so if you're going to make commercial e-juice, put as much effort into it as you put into your DIY public, right? If you care about the industry, you want to help people, don't just put out trash public stuff and save all the good stuff. It's like, put out great public recipes. Keep your private recipes that you plan on releasing. You know, so that's what we're doing now, is like, all these recipes that chefs got, you can't get them in the US. And all the Wizard Labs recipes, you can't get those from e-cig Express or anything. So going exclusive and unreleased just adds so much value to that recipe, where, you know, your vendor or your shop or your juice maker, those guys feel as though you actually care about the quality of their sales and things. If you're just hoeing your recipe around to everywhere, you know, what you're saying is, you as a vendor, even though you're doing business with me, you don't really care about my ability to make money. So that's why, you know, nowadays, everything Wizard Labs that got released, Sugar Cookie Fluff with e-cig Express, the Mixer Collection releases, and all the chefs releases are all exclusives, all designed for them, never released anywhere else. And that adds value for the people that are betting on us and putting money into us. But don't short the DIY community. Like, remember your roots, remember what got you these opportunities in the first place. So it's like, drop good recipes. Like, I dropped a Fruit Loop and a gummy bear, and they're like simple, but you could put it in a bottle and sell that shit like on any shelf of a vape shop, and you could hang on to that, but like, put it out there, you know? Like, just, there's probably like 30 or 40 recipes in the ones I've released that you could sell in a bottle and people would love them. So it's important to put out good stuff. But if you get a deal and you get an opportunity, make sure you respect the value of that opportunity by not trying to, you know, pull opportunity here and then, you know, take it over here. Like, for you, Shindo, since you got something going with chefs, like, I strongly suggest that you develop something exclusive for them, and then, you know, maybe, and it says to you as a mixer, like, can you make another great mix after you've made a great mix? And that's a question to you as a mixer. And it's one of those weird things in your head where you'd be like, oh, I don't know. Was that the best thing I've ever made? And it's really a whole lot better to challenge yourself. Like, all right, whole new thing, a theme or just variety. So we do the themes because we're doing limited releases. We have the Christmas collection, things like that. The best thing you can do sub vapes is just build the brand. So have your brand, whatever it is. If it's sub vapes, if it's something else, lock in the brand, build the brand, And then as the brand grows, you know, it gives you flexibility to do whatever you want to do.
And there was a question about adding sort of sweetener into those juices that you're going to be like using as a portfolio. And Shindo said, you know your audience. And I think that's true. Just know your audience. If you're walking into a general vape shop, they're not I don't know, like I don't want to sound elitist here. But it's not necessarily going to be the kind of audience that can taste something and say, oh yeah, this would be good, but add some sweetener. You're going to have to make that logical step for them. And you want something that makes your juice kind of stand out. So maybe don't just absolutely kill it with sucralose, but yeah, keep in mind your audience, and keep in mind that you're probably going to need something a little sweeter. Just from hearing you talk and Koppel talk, apparently the UK, they like their juices nice and sweet.
Yeah, it goes. And what we found was it's really Canada is the most sweet, and then it's UK, and then it's the US. So even though in the US you're like, damn, this is sweet, they'll take it from 10% to 20. They don't care. Like they over flavor on purpose. Like, and sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's bad. And the other thing with the UK is they're mega menthol, coolada, mega cold. Like they're putting in 5 times as much cold into stuff. Like they're vaping WS-20, whatever it is, straight to the dome. So those are things.
Just taking that WS-23 and that WS-5 straight to the dome.
Yeah, they're dripping it on their RDA.
So yeah, the entire sweetener thing is just knowing your audience. If you already know what the shops you're pitching, what kind of juices sell well in those shops, I mean, bring them a quality product, but a little bit of pandering isn't really a bad thing. And if you develop solid recipes and they don't work out for a certain shop or in a certain area, it's not like those recipes go away. You still have those recipes,
Right. And then the other thing, if you got deals coming, my advice to you as a mixer is don't sign your soul away with exclusivity. The only place that we're exclusive is with chefs, and that's because they offered us the deal when we had no deals. And I like those guys, so it's fine. But when we came into the US, don't sell your brand. Don't lock yourself in. Because it's real easy to be like, oh, opportunity. I have an opportunity here. What you end up doing is robbing yourself of every new opportunity after that. So if someone comes to you the next day and they're like, hey, we want to release 20 one-shots and we'll pay you triple, you've already sold yourself into exclusivity. So strongly recommend you go exclusive recipes. That way you guarantee that they have a product they can sell, but at the same time, you haven't put a period on your career basically in a market. And then when it comes to sweet, like I'm a strong believer in your sweetener range is a 0 to 1% if we're talking Flavor Apprentice, right? So your super sweet's different, but if we're talking like TPA sweetener, 1% is where you kind of stop the brakes. For me, that's everything I put out. I'm not going above that, except when I did that recipe making fun of Concrete River's flavor notes for the gummy bear, and I did like I think a 2 or something crazy. But the coolant and the sweet. Now, what I find too is there's people that will have an issue, and they'll specifically, like we have a guy on our Facebook page, on the E-Juice Makers Facebook page, that'll specifically ask, is there any coolant in this juice? And if there isn't, he buys it. So that's another thing to think about. So it depends on how many you're doing, Shindo. They love bakeries so much, like sweet, and then they're custard addicts. But I mean, for us, the fruits and tobaccos have sold the most. But if you're looking at the market in general, mega custard addicts, and then when they find a fruit that they like, they go for it. But that's great. You got that, man. That's good. You know, that's the end goal is we want a lot of people to succeed.
Yeah, that's been one of my only experiences with mixing commercial juices. You have to just get over the fact that you have to look at a recipe as like what it is. It's just a recipe, you know. And if you're going to monetize that, you kind of give up control over it. I was just joking with Shindo, but you kind of got to kill your babies, man. Like you can absolutely love something, but if you want to go ahead and monetize it, you put it out there, and what happens to it happens to it.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to believe that you can make a good mix tomorrow. And that's the biggest part, because it's like when you first get like an opportunity, like a money opportunity, the first response is like, all right, I'm going to take my best stuff, right? Like, so you got sticky rice going to e-cig Express, right? But it's having that confidence that like tomorrow I can make another banging recipe that's going to do just as well. And that's just believing in yourself and being confident that you're good. It's crazy. First day I did DIY, I made 2 of Wayne's juices, and then I mixed up this concept that I'd written. Like I'd written it before I even got my first flavor order in. And I mixed it up, and I was like, God damn, this is good. This is really good. And my girlfriend comes home, and I'm like, I think I might be really good at this. Like surprised, like one of those moments when you're like, all right, you know what, this might be something I'm really good at, because like I just fucked around and made something that tastes better than the last $1,000 worth of vape shop juice I bought. But like, okay, then where do you go from there? And you have to have that confidence to keep going, you know, and releasing new stuff. And that's the other thing is like, so now my girlfriend's vaping. She's like, oh, this is great juice. And I'm like, wow, that's good to hear, because a lot of times when you're doing national, worldwide stuff, you don't get enough feedback. Like you genuinely mix in like a bubble where like it's good enough for you. You liked it. You thought it was 5-star, but then you have to put it out to like this whole group of thousands of people. And then you just have to like ride that level of what you thought of it and hope that it delivers that way. But it's fun. There are different challenges in mixing, right? So it's different than like I like this. Maybe some people will like this. Then it's like, I like this. Would somebody spend money on this? And that's a different level. But it's fun.
That's all part of the skill set of being somebody who, you know, is a mixer. You know, that's theoretically why we're doing a bunch of this DIY and hobbyist stuff, is it's just learning the tools more than anything else, because it's one thing to go ahead and chase what the juice that you want to vape all day. But I found that, I guess, the more that you mix, the less that becomes particularly important. It's more about just learning the craft, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so like if you go on ELR and you sort by rating, a lot of people will go and mix my oldest stuff, right? Which I would give like a B-, but it's got the most ratings. But there's recipes in there that were just projects. Like what I'll do is I'll like take on a hard project. So it'll be like my hard project at the moment is spicy hot chocolate, right? That's a bitch. Very hard to do. Like, because it's a Mexican hot chocolate, it's got heat, it's got spice to it. And man, like when I first mixed it, I was like, it like bummed me out how bad it was. But then it steeps and it's better, you know. But I took a month like on the Toll House recipe. It was like a month of vaping really bad chocolate chip cookies, and then, you know, the eggnog took me a month, and you know, it's a month of vaping really bad eggnog. mango lassi, which is a Greek yogurt mango smoothie. You know, there's times when they're really bad versions of those, and it's really stubborn. Like, you got to be stubborn to be a good mixer. Like, just stubborn. Like, damn it, I messed it up. I'm gonna make it again. I'm gonna make it again. This tastes like trash. I'm gonna make it again.
You've just got to be comfortable with just screwing up constantly. I mean, that's the entire thing, and that's part of getting into DIY and getting used to that kind of mindset. Like, people joke about hate vaping all their failures. I can't vape all of my failures. Like, I generate too much screwed up juice to actually vape through it all. You know?
It's true. Like, I even mentioned, like, this is, I don't know, it's okay. But it's part of a concept of it's like cake testing, right? So, you know, I'm seeing what the cake does. I'm seeing what Capella cake does with the pastry zest together. I'm seeing, you know, is there a way to hide the candy banana with the pumpkin spice? So a lot of times, you know, the failures will teach you something about how to be better the next round. And there's a whole nother part of it, which is just understanding what people like, right? And Remix Month's good for that, because you get to kind of see what people are demanding for, or in Reddit, the clone request. You can see what people like.
So, you know, just by means of illustration for how much juice you're going to end up throwing out, I have probably about 24, 25 testers here. These are all, I think this is about 13 or 14 different recipes and versions of it. I might get one juice that I feel comfortable with out of that.
Vape it and weep.
Like, it's all about falling flat on your face, being able to pivot and learning the actual craft of mixing, you know? Mixing to specific profiles, mixing to people's tastes. It's, you know, and you can do a lot of that and still maintain sort of the integrity of what you're doing, but you have to learn at least some of, you know, that skill set of just being able to let it go and just work towards a goal.
Yeah, okay. So then there's things I've abandoned too, like Shindo says, like a Boba's Bounty clone. You scratch that. And then like a perfect cotton candy. Vape that shit for a month, nothing but chemical trash. So then I'll just like hard quit some things. So there's totally times when you should know when to quit, especially if you've made like 60 versions, and then release one version. If you modify it, update it. If you think it's better as the mixer, like, control your releases. Like, insane. Nobody wants your 60 variations on ELR. Like, pick the one that you as the artist want to put out and stick with that. Like, I updated the cream base and then I kill the old cream base. If you liked it, you'll love this one. Screenshot it if you want it to be exact, or adapt it and save that in your stuff, because I'll go in and update old stuff all the time. And I have no problem with that, because like, maybe you can't make it as easy when you go back to make it, but you're going to end up getting a better product as a result. Like, go back to your old stuff that's like whatever, year, 2 years, whatever you are, and look at it with new eyes, and you're going to see mistakes right away. Or you'll see things like, oh, I wouldn't do that today. I wouldn't use this marshmallow, I'd use this one. Or, oh, I totally want to put Inaware cherries in here instead of Flavor Art cherry, right? Just things like that, like stuff that as you grow and you try new flavors, things work better than where they worked when you made it. You know, so that's where you can improve your collection of recipes too, is going back in and refreshing stuff. But yeah, don't put out like 20 versions of it. Nobody cares, because all you're doing is confusing people. Like the person that comes to look at your mixes and they see 10 different recipes for the same thing, they don't know what they're supposed to mix. So you kind of leave them just like lost in your confusion. And if you're on round 10, 11, 12, round 20, the only person I've seen come out with a good mix after like 50 rounds is Apex, and that's with his Blue Frost. But even he came back and updated that with the hibiscus, like a corn syrup. So like very cool updates. Whereas like from one mixer to another, you could see like, oh, I see what he's doing. He's using it like corn syrup. You know, so that's cool too. Shout out to Too Tall. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Leilani, the challenger to Concrete's throne.
Shout out to Mr. Burgundy. Shout out to Sub Vape. Shout out to Alaska. Shout out to everybody.
Steamer.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Yeah, definitely. You guys are great. Oh, we already hit an hour. We're crazy. Oh, well, all right. So you want to follow us, stay up to date with us. Here comes the advertising part. You can jump out if you want. We have the MixLife app on iTunes and Apple. You can't even put a app in the store through the service we used anymore. So we're locked in. We got DIY app. We have Concrete Rivers Show. You can find it either on the E-Juice Makers Facebook page. You can find it on the E-Juice Makers website. You can find it on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. We have the MixLife team that does the Noted Show. All three of those guys are MixLife crew. Monday nights DIY or Die Podcast Network. Pretty much pick a podcast sometime this week and Concrete River will be on it. Audio podcast, if you want to, if you're on Twitch, if you just click a random podcast show going on, Concrete River will be there, folks.
Yeah, I just show up random places now. It's kind of my thing, I guess.
If you want to mix up any of the team's public recipes, you can find them on the website. There's links to all the flavors and ELR profiles. If you want to pick up some one-shots, we have Wizard Labs one-shots. We have the dessert pack and the fruit pack available. $12.99 right now. You get 5 concentrates. Really cool way to try all these mixers and see how they mix. We have the winter Christmas collection at Chefs in the UK, and they'll ship to the US for $7 if you want to pick up one of those. They're really cool. We have the mixer collection in Canada. We have Jennifer, myself, and Apex at e-cig Express doing one-shots too. And we all have recipe packs pretty much on Bull City flavors. So pretty much wherever you are, we're there too. So thanks for watching the MixLife show. And you guys have a wonderful Sunday.